Willie Nelson, at the age of 92, is a living icon of American country music. The man who wrote the history of outlaw country with a series of unparalleled achievements, from classic albums like Shotgun Willie, Red-Headed Stranger, Stardust, to a string of immortal songs such as On the Road Again, Pancho, and Lefty. To all the girls I've loved before, his music has not only captured the hearts of audiences, but also reshaped the style of country music for many decades. Over 7 decades in his career, Willie has received countless awards, including 8 Grammy Awards, multiple honors at the Country Music Hall of Fame, the Gershwin Prize for Popular Song from the Library of Congress of the United States, and other prestigious awards from the CMA, Songwriters Hall of Fame, Kennedy Center honors. Proving his immeasurable influence in American and global music, millions of records have been sold. Thousands of performances around the world, from small stages to major music festivals, contributing to a great musical legacy and inspiring many generations of young artists. Willie is not only a singer-songwriter, but also a social activist, the founder of Farm Aid, a supporter of American farmers and charitable activities, and at the same time, a pioneer advocating for the legalization of cannabis, music education, turning fame into a tool for social change. But behind the stage lights and fame, Willie Nelson has gone through so much pain and adversity. A difficult childhood in Abbott, Texas, parents divorced, living with his grandparents, enduring emotional and material deprivation, losing loved ones, having to work extremely hard from a young age. In his career, he once faced serious financial crises, had his assets seized by the IRS, lost his home in Ridgetop, Tennessee, and had to deal with scandals and family separation due to continuous tours. Nevertheless, music has always been his weapon for survival. He used melodies to turn pain into strength, turn loneliness into resilience, and turn failure into a journey of rising up. Willie still stands on stage, dedicating himself fully, inspiring audiences and generations of artists, proving that persistent will and love for music can overcome all adversity, turning tragedy into the power to live. Before we continue exploring the upheavals and pains Willie Nelson has overcome throughout more than 90 years of his life, please hit like and subscribe to the channel to send a small but profound tribute to a legend who remains resilient in the face of all adversity, and to fully experience the journey from a difficult childhood to the bright stage lights. Please hit the notification bell and leave a heart, a sign of accompanying him through every emotional note. Willie Nelson grew up in Abbott, Texas, a small town where cotton dust flew thick and the blazing sun spared no children, where dreams sometimes had not even formed before being crushed by hunger and poverty. His parents divorced when he was very young, leaving the little boy to live with his grandparents in a dilapidated wooden house with rotten walls and a leaking roof every time it rained, and strong winds that made the house creak as if crying along with the children inside. Willie lost his grandfather early and had to learn to live with emotional deprivation, missing the supporting hands and simple words of comfort that any child craves. Every day was a battle for survival. From a very young age, Willie had to pick cotton in the scorching fields, help his grandmother with household chores, clean, wash dishes, and do all kinds of work in exchange for meager meals and a few small coins. The boy also soon realized that the world around him was full of prejudice. Classmates mocked his old shoes. Harsh words like, "You will never get out of here," sank deep into his mind, reminding Willie that fate had never favored anyone. The mockery, contemptuous looks, and social isolation were etched into the little boy's mind, becoming silent but heavy scars, reminding him that all success must be earned by himself, not waited for from anyone. Amid those harsh days, music appeared like a spiritual salvation, a space where the little boy could find his own breath. Willie held his first guitar at the age of 6, his small hands trembling, but each note ringing out like an echo of hope. At 7 years old, he composed his first song, each note like a whisper to himself that no matter how poor, no matter how abandoned, he still existed, still had value. In the old wooden house, on nights when there was nothing to eat, Willie listened to the sound of his own guitar echoing in the darkness, feeling the rhythm sink into his heart like a small flame warming both body and soul. Music was not just entertainment, not just joy, but the place where the little boy found salvation, where dreams were not extinguished by hunger or prejudice. Each melody, each chord was Willie's way of telling the world that even though abandoned, even though poor and lonely, he was still here, still resilient, and would survive with his own voice. The long days in the fields, the cold nights without a heater, the times of being looked down upon by friends and society, all were transformed by Willie into rhythms, into lyrics, into a desire for existence stronger than ever. As he grew up, all the memories of poverty, of his grandparents' calloused hands, of the silent drops of sweat and tears falling in the darkness, became material for creation, for him to write songs that later touched the hearts of millions of people. It was in those harsh months and years that Willie learned the first lesson of life. Music can save, and the will to live is stronger than any adversity. He did not just sing to survive, but to affirm himself, to tell the world that even in the darkest darkness, bright notes can still ring out, hope can still be grasped, and one can move forward. Willie's childhood was also filled with moments of helplessness and loneliness that only adults could understand. The nights he quietly looked out the window, watching the river flow, listening to the wind whistling through the old roof, wondering if there would be anything to eat tomorrow, if he could survive the harsh winter. Every step on the red dirt road reminded him that the world was never open to him, but each note, each song opened up his own sky, where the little boy could breathe freely, where pain could turn into beauty, where hope had never gone out. Music became a shield, both protecting the young soul and serving as a spiritual escape, teaching Willie that strength does not come from wealth or power, but from the ability to turn pain into creation and the will to stand up every day. The experiences of deprivation and discrimination shaped an extraordinary spirit, helping Willie Nelson become an artist who is not only resilient on stage, but also survives everyday challenges. From the early poor days in Abbott to the pressures of tours, contracts, and later fame. Looking back, it was those dark nights, those calloused hands, those insufficient meals, and those contemptuous looks that forged his will, turning Willie from a poor little boy into the living legend of country music, a man who will continue to stand firm and dedicate his music for life, regardless of age and all adversity. Willie Nelson grew up not only in poverty, but also in an environment full of injustice and spiritual violence, where the little boy was constantly mocked, isolated, and looked down upon by his classmates. Those cold eyes, those taunts about torn shoes, patched clothes, or his young voice made Willie realize early on that this world did not favor children like him. Every day at school was a new challenge. Every step across the playground was a battle not to be subdued by the harshness of the community. Even though excluded, scorned, and looked down upon, Willie learned how to stand tall and not submit, how to endure persistently when facing harsh words and contemptuous looks that no one cared about his feelings. The little boy soon deeply felt that life could sometimes be unfair and cruel, that pain was inevitable, and the only way to survive was to find a spiritual shelter, a flame to keep himself from being extinguished in the darkness of loneliness and hunger. Music became that place, a private sky where Willie could breathe, could exist, in the old wooden house or at the Baptist church services nearby. The sound of his guitar and voice rang out like a challenge to injustice, a way to tell the world that he was still there, still existing, and still had value. The church was not only a place of prayer, but also a place where he found hope and faith. There, the singing echoed through the roof, through the old windows, seeping into every little heart, reminding Willie that even in loneliness, beauty and light could still be created. Each note, each line he practiced carefully, not just to be heard, but to keep his soul alive, to turn loneliness and helplessness into inner strength. His grandparents and parents, though lacking materially, still taught Willie valuable lessons about patience, perseverance, and the will to live. Through the days of hard labor, through watching adults struggle to make a living, he learned how to fight adversity with determination and resolve, how to turn difficulties into motivation, how to stand up after every failure. Those lessons, combined with music, gradually formed a Willie Nelson with an unyielding spirit. A child who knew that sometimes music was the only way to be seen, to exist, and to say that he would never disappear. Music was not just notes and chords, but a tool to keep himself alive, a language to express what could not be said in words, a place where the little boy found a sense of control and power when everything around him took that away. On long nights, he sat by the old guitar, hands shaking but pressing the keys, trying every chord and melody, trying to sing songs that created life in his young heart, knowing that if he stopped singing, he might be drowned in loneliness and hunger. Each note, each melody, became proof of the existence, evidence that he could stand firm despite the early hardships, despite the mockery, despite the harshness he had to endure. In the quiet moments after leaving church, when only the wind whistling through the roof and the lingering sound of the guitar remained in the dark room, Willie realized that music not only saved his soul, but also shaped who he was, preparing him for a life full of ups and downs, but also filled with hope. It was in that harsh childhood, amid injustice and spiritual violence, that Willie learned that resilience, will, and music were the only things strong enough to keep him alive, strong enough to turn suffering into strength and adversity into the path to glory, opening a long journey that later became Outlaw country, became a living legend and a source of inspiration for millions of people around the world. Willie Nelson stepped into his youth in a world that was both vast and harsh, where dreams and reality always intertwined in a cruel way. Right from his teenage years, he began selling his own composed music, singing in small bars, even working as a DJ on local radio stations to make a living, both to support himself and to keep music alive in his life. Every performance night, every time holding the microphone, was a new challenge. The audience was not large, sometimes just a few customers passing by. Indifferent eyes and harsh comments made Willie understand early that the road ahead would not be smooth at all. The demos sent to record labels were often ignored, returned, or even never received any response, and the first albums that he poured his heart into recording hardly created any buzz, forcing him to face piled-up disappointment, material and spiritual hunger. In those consecutive failures, Willie learned how to turn pain into creative motivation. Each time he was rejected, each time his music was not recognized, he recorded those experiences, those feelings of loneliness, those feelings of being abandoned into every lyric, every melody. The notes were no longer just sounds, but became proof of existence, evidence that he was not erased by this life. Social tensions, racial discrimination in the South of the United States, poverty and injustice were always present like invisible barriers, pushing Willie into empty nights, moments of confusion, not knowing what tomorrow would bring. He witnessed friends, those in similar situations, being held back by prejudices, and realized early that if he did not stand up for himself, did not hold on to his dream, then no one could do it for him. Music became salvation, a shelter, the reason to live amid months and years full of pressure and deprivation. When everything out there seemed to turn its back, when the body was exhausted after long trips and performances with no audience, Willie again found life in his guitar, in the chords he practiced over and over all night. Every lyric, every note contained the desire to exist and affirm himself. The boy who once stood in the darkness of Abbott had now become the person who knew how to use music to tell his own story, to tell the world that even though abandoned, even though poor, Even though society was unfair, he was still here, still singing, still living, and would continue to walk on the music path he chose. Those troubled youthful experiences not only trained Willie in the ability to endure, but also formed his characteristic music style, the way he turned suffering, loneliness, and injustice into songs that could touch anyone's heart. Every song written in this period, although not yet widely recognized, carried real-life material, loneliness, and the desire to live. They were the premise for later albums like Shotgun Willie or Red-Headed Stranger to become music icons. Each song was evidence of a resilient spirit and a strong will to live, showing that music was not just a profession, but a path of salvation, a message from his own life that no adversity could extinguish the human desire to exist and shine. In these years, Willie also learned patience and perseverance, learned how to stand up after failure, learned how to turn loneliness and injustice into a guiding light for the future. Every small tour, every old microphone, every worn-out guitar became witnesses to his pain and desire, and also the place where valuable lessons were formed that he would carry throughout his life. From the first failures to the empty nights in bars, Willie knew that music not only saved himself, but also saved the souls of those who listened to him sing, and thanks to that music, his desire to live never faded. No matter how many challenges, adversities, and losses he went through in his youth, Willie Nelson stepped into adulthood with a fierce ambition. But the music path was never filled with roses. He began touring across Texas and Ohio, performing in rundown garages, small bars, and stages where the audience was sparse. The lights dim, sometimes just a few customers passing by without even paying attention to his melodies. Every performance night was a challenge. Sleeping temporarily on sofas, in old buses, meager food, hot or bitterly cold weather, all weighed heavily on Willie's young body and mind. Long trips, red dirt roads, and cold mornings waking up in parking lots became part of the harsh rhythm of life that any young artist had to go through if they wanted to survive. Even though his body was tired, Willie never stopped practicing. On long nights, sitting writing music on receipt paper, on old invoices, on any piece of paper he could find, he used music as a source of mental strength to keep himself from being subdued by adversity, to prove that his own voice and notes had more value than any rejection or obstacle from the outside world. Each note was proof of a resilient will, a reminder to himself that no matter how difficult, no matter how abandoned or rejected, he still had the chance to live, to sing, and to turn his deepest emotions into music. Pressure from the public and the music market did not lessen at all. Record labels often rejected his songs. Performances only earned a few small coins, and sometimes the audience showed indifference, mockery, or did not understand the unique style that Willie was pursuing. But this very harshness trained a resilient and persistent spirit, helping him learn how to face failure without collapsing, learn how to stand firm against all prejudices, and turn every pain, every rejection, every empty night into motivation to move forward. This was the period when Willie prepared for the outlaw country movement, a music style that he would shake together with Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson, becoming a symbol of freedom, of rebellious and resilient spirit. Every trip, every performance, no matter how small or narrow, was a school of life and music for Willie. He learned how to restrain disappointment, how to turn loneliness and hunger into melodies containing genuine emotions, how to make the audience feel the pain and desire to live through every note. His perseverance was not only practicing on stage, but also the ability to keep the spirit of survival amid harsh circumstances, amid tiring days, being forgotten and even looked down upon. These harsh experiences shaped the Willie Nelson that the whole world would later know. An artist who did not just sing for fun, but sang to exist. Who did not just perform to make money, but performed to tell the story of his life. Who did not just write music for entertainment, but wrote music to affirm his presence, to affirm that even in poverty, failure, or loneliness, music was still the place of salvation, the bridge between people and the world. In the long nights on the road, the tiring practice hours, the sound of the guitar echoing between the cold garage walls, Willie learned that resilience, perseverance, and love for music were the only things strong enough to keep him standing firm. And thanks to those harsh months and years, outlaw country would be born, becoming a movement, a spirit, and an inseparable part of American music history. Those harsh years of struggle were not only the foundation for his legendary career, but also proof of the power of will and the ability to turn adversity into art. Willie Nelson proved that music could heal pain, nourish the spirit, and turn injustices, empty nights, and failures into solid baggage for an entire life, so that when the stage lights shone brightly, the audience heard not only the melodies but also the story of a person who had lived, had endured, and had stood up despite all challenges. Willie Nelson stepped into the peak period of his career when his music style began to shape an entire generation and opened the outlaw country movement, a quiet but powerful revolution. Resisting the smooth, restrictive country music taste of Nashville, he began collaborating with prominent names of the time, such as Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson, forming the Highwaymen Group, where each performance was not just music, but also a declaration of artistic freedom and the unyielding resilience of artists who chose to live in their own way. Iconic albums like Shotgun Willie, Red-Headed Stranger, and Stardust not only achieved brilliant commercial success, but also affirmed the outlaw country style everyday stories. Pain, love, loss, and hope conveyed through Willie's distinctive voice, making listeners both empathize and be captivated. The performance schedule in this period became denser and harsher than ever. Every week was a series of performances across states, long trips of hundreds of miles on old buses, sleeping on seats or in temporary guest rooms. Meager food and harsh weather still did not make Willie step back. He performed with all his heart in every song, despite the fatigue and the age-related pains that were beginning to creep in, turning the stage into the place where he poured all his soul, including loneliness, pain, and the utmost happiness of music. Artistic and public success came with family separation and professional pressure. Long tours, tough music contracts, and strict demands from record labels left Willie with little time to be with his children or family. Every evening, returning to a cold hotel room brought a feeling of emptiness when he could not share stories or smiles with his loved ones. Financial pressure was also present. Contracts could be unfavorable, earnings sometimes not enough to cover travel costs and maintaining the band. But Willie still stood firm on stage, dedicating himself and singing with all his heart, considering music the only salvation for both spirit and career. Throughout this period, Willie also faced financial and contract challenges, negotiating with record labels, retaining song ownership, handling royalties, and harsh tours had become real lessons in toughness and persistence. These pressures did not discourage him, but helped train endurance and independence, laying the groundwork for him to stand firm in the music industry, which was harsh, highly competitive, and sometimes unfair to young artists or those following the outlaw country path. Performances with the Highwaymen or solo tours were all tests of both physical endurance and spirit. Willie often sang until his voice was hoarse, his hands shaking on the guitar keys, his body tired, but still maintaining full energy and emotion. He learned how to convey life stories, pain, hope, and love to the audience, turning each song into a living experience, making listeners not only enjoy the music, but also feel his resilient spirit and will to live. It was in this period that Willie Nelson truly became the living icon of outlaw country, not only through music, but also through the story of resilience, perseverance, and refusal to submit to adversity. Every album, every tour, every song recorded a journey full of sweat, tears, and burning passion. He proved that music was not just a profession, but a way to live, to exist, and to inspire an entire generation of audiences. In the bright lights of the stage, amid the cheers of thousands of audience members, Willie still carried the memories of his poor childhood, the long nights struggling with loneliness and hunger, the early failures, and turned all of them into musical strength. He did not just stand on stage to perform, but stood there to prove that art, will, and resilient spirit could overcome all adversity, opening a new chapter for American country music, engraving Willie Nelson as a living legend whom every challenge only made more extraordinary. Willie Nelson, after conquering the harsh stages of the outlaw country movement, stepped into a period of brilliant success, but full of pressure and loneliness. Hundreds of shows each year, performances from small bars to major music festivals, continued non-stop, leaving his body exhausted, his hands shaking on the guitar keys, his voice sometimes hoarse from fatigue, but Willie still stood on stage, singing with all his heart. The money earned was little compared to the effort put in. Contracts with record labels were often unfavorable. Song ownership did not fully belong to him, and fame did not bring financial security. These challenges gradually became heavy mental pressure, making him understand that success sometimes came with deep loneliness and pain that could not be shared with anyone. In 1990, Willie's life faced a major upheaval when the IRS seized most of his assets due to a huge unpaid tax bill, pushing him and his family into losing their home in Ridgetop, Tennessee, and forcing them to struggle to pay off debts and maintain a minimum standard of living. Nevertheless, Willie did not let that suffering subdue him. He viewed these difficulties as a new challenge to train his will and resilient spirit, turning the crisis into motivation to continue dedicating himself to music. Great success came with family conflicts and distance from his children. Long tours, all-night performances left him with little time for family, unable to witness each step of his children's growth, and sometimes feeling lost even when standing amid the cheers of thousands of audience members. The evenings returning home to an empty room, with only the faint sounds of household items and memories of skipped meals, were the times when Willie felt the loneliness and inner pain most clearly. Career success, gold records, million-dollar contracts could not fill the void in the heart of a father, a husband, and a son. Facing the pressure of fame, Willie learned how to balance music and personal life. He began to realize that to survive and continue dedicating himself, he needed not only talent and endurance, but also to listen to himself, spend time with family, and find peaceful moments to recover mentally. The times, sitting alone with his guitar, writing music, or talking with his children, he found comfort and inner strength to overcome loneliness and external pressure. In these years, Willie Nelson learned that success did not always come with happiness, and loneliness could quietly exist even when the bright stage lights shone on his face. But music remained the source of life, the place where he released his pain, turned loneliness into creative inspiration, and used melodies to connect with audiences, to prove that no matter what adversity he faced, he still existed, still dedicated himself, and still kept his spirit of freedom, perseverance, and resilience. These years were not only challenges physically and financially, but also lessons in patience, in managing pressure, and in balancing passion with personal life. Willie Nelson learned how to stand firm between two worlds. One side was the stage, lights, and applause of the public. The other side was emptiness, distance, and homesickness. Music became the bridge, helping him stay in touch with his emotions, with his family, and with his true self, while also laying the foundation for future successes in his life and career, making Willie not only a legendary artist, but also a living symbol of perseverance, resilience, and loyalty to music despite adversity. Willie Nelson stepped into adulthood with resounding successes in music, but alongside that glory were family tragedies and broken relationships. He went through many unfulfilled marriages, with relationships and marriages that lasted but ultimately fell apart. Martha Matthews, his first wife, Shirley Colley, and Constance Jen Connie Kepke all left him in their own ways, leaving Willie to face feelings of loss, loneliness, and unfinished responsibilities. Each divorce was not just a separation between two people, but also brought deep consequences for the children, for close relationships, and for Willie's own spirit. He had to learn how to stand firm amid the breakdown, heal his wounds himself, and continue dedicating himself to music as a way to hold on to himself and survive in a world full of changes. Pressure from the media made every private story of Willie a topic of discussion, with every scandal, every distance or misunderstanding being exaggerated and followed. While audiences only saw the bright stage lights, the awards, and the successes, they did not know that behind the scenes were the long nights when Willie felt emptiness, loneliness, and worries about his children. Lucas, Paula, Amy, and Jacob children, born from different marriages, had to endure distance from their father, the absence of normal family moments, and the pressure of growing up under the spotlight of a legend. Willie witnessed the sadness, disappointment, and even mental wounds creeping into his children. But the pressure of tours, music contracts, and fame prevented him from always being by their side, creating a vicious cycle of loneliness and helplessness. The years of distance, the non-stop touring days, and the strict music contracts made Willie face an increasingly large inner loneliness as his youth passed. The evenings returning to cold hotel rooms, where he could only listen to music from an old radio or the sound of his own guitar, became the times he confronted himself with homesickness and emptiness that no one could fill. Nevertheless, Willie did not submit. Music remained the source of life and salvation, the way for him to keep his will, keep his emotions, and continue walking on the path he had chosen. Through each upheaval, Willie learned how to maintain his spirit and resilience in the face of adversity. Music became the place where he both poured out his heart and connected with the world. Both healed the soul wounds that life had left. In his songs, he embedded pain, loss, and hope, turning personal experiences into strength that spread to audiences. Even while distant from his children and facing scandals from the media, Willie still stood firm, continued singing, continued writing music, and inspired millions of people around the world, proving that even if family broke apart and loneliness was deep, will and music could still keep him existing and shining. Those years of divorce and family tragedy also helped Willie Nelson realize the true value of music and resilient spirit. It was not glory or money, but the ability to overcome suffering, find comfort, and continue standing up after each loss. Music became a constant companion, and each song, each note, was the bridge connecting him to his children. Between loneliness and hope, between personal losses and the greatness he had built in music, in loneliness and challenges, Willie remained steadfast, and it was thanks to these experiences that he became a living legend, an artist who not only had a voice echoing around the world, but also had a resilient heart and an admirable character. After the long years full of family tragedy, divorce, and inner loneliness, Willie Nelson finally found the faint light of happiness when he married Annie D'Angelo, the woman who brought him peace and true companionship in life. Unlike previous relationships, Annie was not drawn to the spotlight or fame, but loved Willie for his resilient spirit, sincerity, and the music that touched her heart. This new life gave him the opportunity to rebuild his family, take care of his children, and rediscover the values forgotten during the years of non-stop touring. Happiness did not come overwhelmingly, but quietly, day by day, from quiet breakfasts, afternoons with the guitar in the living room, to simple smiles when the children sang and played music beside him. Willie's children, from Lucas, Paula, Jacob, to Amy, who had once been distant and under much pressure during their parents' divorces, now gradually grew up and joined the family band, accompanying their father on tours and recording sessions. The presence of his children brought Willie a deep joy, not only in music but also in family, in connection, and as proof of the ability to overcome previous losses. The practice sessions, the tours now became opportunities for the whole family to bond, to experience the joy of music together, and to share simple but meaningful moments. In this process, Willie learned how to combine music with personal life, completely different from the previous years when tours, contracts, and fame pressure dominated his life. He began to realize that music was not just a tool for making a living or performing, but also a way to build and maintain family bonds, create precious memories, and lasting happiness. The moments with family in the studio, on stage, or simply evenings together taught Willie that happiness did not always come from fame or money, but from presence, sharing, and real love. Even while still facing professional pressure and long tours, Willie knew how to manage his time and mind, setting aside quiet moments for family to feel the warmth and simple joy he had once missed. Music still occupied an important part, but now it was no longer a source of pressure, but a place to share, to connect, and to heal mental wounds. Each melody, each song now was both a career and a message about family, about joy found again after upheavals, about the desire to live and love endlessly. Through these recovery years, Willie Nelson not only recreated family joy and happiness, but also restored his will, creative energy, and peace of mind. Family became a safe harbor, a place where he could breathe, could laugh, and could live fully. Even when tours and stage lights still called his name, Willie's journey to rediscover happiness was not just a story of love and family stability, but also proof of inner strength, the ability to overcome adversity and turn pain into the joy of living, a profound lesson that anyone could learn from his extraordinary journey. In the warm space of the new family, Willie Nelson's music became the thread connecting generations, where songs not only rang out on stage but also echoed in the living room, in the laughter of the children, and in Annie's eyes full of love. This was the period when happiness, peace, and the will to live blended together, showing that after all upheavals, whether loneliness or failure, life could still open up complete, warm, and meaningful moments. Willie Nelson, through music and family, continued to prove that resilience, love, and hope were never lost, but only waited to be found and cherished in each simple yet precious moment of life. Willie Nelson, after stepping into his 90s, still maintains his passion for music and performing spirit, even though his health has declined significantly over time. Long tours, consecutive performances, his trembling hands on the guitar keys, and his voice sometimes growing hoarse due to age, do not diminish his determination and enthusiasm. Each time he stands on stage, Willie still delivers genuine emotions, with melodies that still contain pain, joy, memories, and all the concerns throughout his life, making audiences not only listen, but also feel every beat of his heart. Although his body is old, he knows that health is the foundation for endurance, and his determination in taking care of himself has helped Willie continue performing at an advanced age, becoming a living testament to the power of spirit, overcoming physical limits. Willie Nelson follows a disciplined daily routine and gentle exercise, balancing performing with proper rest. He maintains light cardio exercises, stretching, deep breathing, and resting on schedule, so his body has enough strength to withstand the pressures from tours and a dense work schedule. Not chasing perfect health or appearance, Willie focuses on the ability to adapt to old age, knowing when to rest, when to stand on stage, and when to spend time with family. This very perseverance has helped him maintain his rhythm of life and fighting spirit, turning old age into a period of maturity, depth, but still full of vitality. Besides taking care of his body, Willie still maintains the joy of living and deep connections with music, family, and audiences. Practice sessions with his children in the family band, or performances on small stages and major music festivals, remain the places where he feels love, appreciation, and joy from the audience. Evenings with Annie D'Angelo and his children become precious quiet moments, where he finds peace, smiles, and the warmth of family after long years of loneliness and professional pressure. Music is not just a profession, but also a spiritual thread, helping Willie Nelson keep his joy, creativity, and desire to live, even when age makes many activities difficult. At over 90 years old, each day for Willie is a new challenge, but also an opportunity to demonstrate his willpower and mental strength. He learns to accept the limits of his body, turning them into motivation to work more wisely, choose reasonable tours, and keep the music alive and full of genuine emotion. The performances, although not as continuous as before, still contain all the emotions and experiences from a long life full of challenges. Each time he raises his voice to sing, Willie takes the audience through stories of poverty, loneliness, loss, and the desire to live, making his music a symbol of perseverance, will, and an unyielding spirit. Declining health does not make Willie Nelson collapse. On the contrary, it affirms his ability to adapt, his wisdom, and his maturity. He knows clearly the value of every second of performing, every note, every conversation with his children, every look from the audience. Thanks to that, Willie still maintains his spiritual connection with the world. His music still echoes, his family remains the place where he finds peace, and audiences still feel the passion of a living legend. It is thanks to his perseverance, willpower, and ability to adapt to old age that Willie Nelson has turned each year of aging into time to affirm his value, cherish music, and nurture family bonds, while inspiring millions of people following him around the world. Although his body is aging, the sound of his guitar still rings, his voice still touches hearts, and Willie's spirit remains stronger than any adversity, proving that age can never stop a soul living fully with music. Besides his resounding music achievements and resilience in overcoming adversity, Willie Nelson is also a passionate social activist, using his fame and influence to bring value to the community. In 1985, he co-founded Farm Aid, a charity program to support struggling American farmers, protect family farms, and maintain traditional rural lifestyles. Not only as a founder, Willie is also the one who ignites the fire, standing on stage to call for support and spread the message, turning each performance into a practical aid campaign with millions of dollars raised and provided to farmers over the years. The program not only saved farming families, but also became a symbol of compassion and solidarity in the community, reflecting Willie's profound view of life, using his abilities and voice to help the vulnerable. Besides Farm Aid, Willie is also one of the pioneers advocating for the legalization of cannabis, not only because of his personal belief, but also out of the desire to free those punished excessively, reduce legal burdens, and improve community life. He uses his fame to raise social awareness, participates in educational campaigns about cannabis, and turns this view into an important part of his cultural legacy. Not stopping there, Willie also supports music education, helps young artists, opens classes and scholarship funds to create opportunities for new talents to develop. Thanks to that, his music is not just art to perform, but also a tool to change lives, support, and inspire the community. Willie also leverages his influence to raise funds for disease research, especially programs supporting people with chronic and life-threatening illnesses. He often appears at auctions, charity events, and special concerts, where every dollar raised is used for medical and educational purposes. These efforts are not for fame or personal gain, but stem from a humanistic spirit and personal sacrifice, expressed through every action, every trip, every song he sings on charity stages. These activities show that Willie Nelson is not only a legendary artist, but also a person with deep social responsibility. He turns music into a tool to connect, inspire, and change the world, while maintaining humility, without ostentation or boasting. This spirit reflects Willie's true nature: resilient, persistent, empathetic, and always putting the community above the individual, showing that music and fame can become means to spread compassion and humanistic values. Over the years, Willie's charity programs and social activities have created a sustainable legacy, where music goes hand in hand with responsibility, where fame comes with duty and deep care for people. Each time he steps on stage at charity events, Willie does not just sing for entertainment or to make a living. but sings to change, to support, and to send vital messages about love, sharing, and compassion. This very spirit makes him a role model not only for artists, but for anyone who desires to live meaningfully, proving that a life dedicated to music can at the same time be a life dedicated to the community and to noble values. In every note, every lyric, Willie Nelson conveys commitment and personal sacrifice, long tours, consecutive non-stop performances, hours of practice and recording, all balanced with social responsibility and kindness. Thanks to this combination, he not only leaves timeless music, but also a humanistic legacy, an image of a living legend not only for his talent, but also for his open heart, resilience, and constant focus on others. Willie Nelson is not only a country music artist, but also a living icon of American music, the man who has left a rich and immortal musical legacy. Albums like Shotgun Willie, Red-Headed Stranger, Stardust not only achieved commercial success, but also shaped the outlaw country style, opening a new direction for country music, where artists can freely express their personality, emotions, and life stories without being bound by the strict rules of the industry. His songs, from On the Road Again to Pancho and Lefty, not only echoed on the charts, but also deeply entered American culture, becoming an indispensable part of collective memory, ringing out at events, bars, living rooms, and even large international stages. Each note, each lyric, carries Willie's strong personal imprint, reflecting loneliness, the desire to live, hope, and joy from the simplest things, creating closeness and strong appeal to audiences of all ages. Willie's influence does not stop at the borders of the United States. His music has touched the hearts of audiences around the world, from Europe, Asia to Australia, inspiring millions with melodies full of freedom, rebellion, and authenticity. Young artists today, no matter what genre they follow, still look to Willie as a model of staying true to their own style, the will to overcome adversity, and endless creativity. He has proven that an artist does not need to follow every rule or template to be recognized, but only needs to be true to himself, to his music and his story, and everything will find its own voice in the hearts of the public. The outlaw country style that Willie built with his collaborators is not just music, but also the spirit of independent artists. A powerful message that art is not only entertainment, but a means to express opinions, tell personal stories, and fight for creative freedom. His records, songs, and tours have become living proof of this spirit, where music is both a profession and a way to exist, affirming value and inspiring the community. Every note of Willie was written from real experiences, from lonely nights, long journeys, practice hours, and even losses, turning his music into a humanistic journey that touches the deep emotions of people. Willie Nelson's musical legacy is also shown through his ability to connect generations. His songs are not only listened to by loyal fans from the 1970s, but are also loved by today's young generation, covered, used in movies, advertisements, and television, proving the enduring vitality of his music. Hundreds of songs and albums have become historical landmarks, both with artistic value and reflecting a period of American culture. From the fields of Texas to the bustling streets of Nashville and beyond, Willie Nelson is also proof of the longevity of outlaw country and the spirit of independent artists. He not only composes and performs, but also participates in production, collaborates, and guides young artists, helping them understand that staying true to style and personal identity is the only way for music to live forever. Thanks to those contributions, Willie not only leaves a massive musical legacy, but also a model of character, resilience, and loyalty to art, a message that every artist in the world can learn from and follow. Each performance, each album, each song by Willie Nelson tells the story of a resilient life, daring to overcome adversity and knowing how to enjoy joy from the simplest things. His musical legacy is not only immortal notes, but also a spirit of living, a fighting spirit, and the ability to turn suffering into art, becoming a precious gift for all those who love music, love life, and need inspiration to overcome challenges. Willie Nelson, with his music and unique lifestyle, has proven that an artist does not only exist in time, but also exists in the minds and hearts of millions of people around the world. And that is what makes the great and lasting value of the legacy he leaves behind. Willie Nelson is not only an artist, but also a living symbol of freedom, music, and the outlaw spirit, a resilient man who lives in his own way, regardless of all prejudices and pressures from society. His image, from the long braided silver hair, the deep eyes looking at life, to the guitar always by his side, has become a symbol of an independent lifestyle, where music is not just a profession, but also a way to affirm himself, to convey his own stories and emotions. Every song, every album, every performance is proof of an unyielding spirit in the face of adversity, and shows that Willie has always stayed true to his real self, not distracted by public opinion or the glare of fame. Willie's behaviors and life choices testify to his extraordinary character and persistent willpower. He not only faced poverty, loneliness, divorce, or personal scandals, but also went through financial crises when the IRS seized most of his assets, lost his home, and had to start over. Instead of collapsing, Willie used music to survive, to rebuild faith, and to continue dedicating himself to his family, audiences, and community. The harsh touring years, the long nights of practice, the lonely moments with his guitar trained him with a steadfast will, teaching him how to turn suffering into creative inspiration and failure into inner strength. Every choice, from keeping song ownership, participating in farm aid, to supporting the legalization of cannabis, shows that Willie always acts based on values, principles, and compassion, not for fame or personal gain. In family life, even though he went through many divorces, distance from his children and work pressure, Willie still found ways to bond with his kids, built the family band, brought them along on tours and in the studio, so that family could be both a source of encouragement and a place to pour out his heart. This behavior shows the ability to balance career and family values between stage lights and peaceful moments, and affirms that a life worth living is not only measured by success or fame, but also by cherishing loved ones and the ability to maintain affection in adversity. Willie Nelson's indomitable spirit is clearly shown in the way he faces old age, with declining health but still continuing to tour, compose, and perform, maintaining the joy of living and inspiring audiences. It has not let age or illness slow down his pace of life, but knows how to adjust, adapt, and use music as a source of mental energy to overcome all difficulties and challenges. It is this combination of willpower, perseverance, passion for music, and love for family that has made Willie a symbol of a man who never submits, a living example for generations of artists and audiences around the world. Every journey, from the days touring in garages, being rejected by record labels, to becoming an outlaw country legend, is proof of profound life values, resilience, honesty with oneself, daring to dream, and turning desire into action. Willie Nelson does not just sing to survive, but also sings to inspire, to connect people, to tell stories of willpower and immortal hope. He is a model of perseverance, of the power of will, and of the independent artist spirit, proving that art and character can live longer than time and overcome all adversity. In the eyes of millions of fans, Willie is not only a legendary voice, but also a teacher, a father, a friend, and a humanistic symbol, teaching every generation that even after experiencing loneliness, suffering, failure, or loss, one can still stand up, keep singing, keep loving, and keep living. He has turned music into a journey of life, a message about freedom, resilience, and faith in life, where every note is proof of personal value, indomitability, and the human ability to rise, making Willie Nelson a timeless symbol of outlaw country and of the independent artist spirit, a legend not only in music but also in his own life, full of willpower and humanity. As he steps into the final years of his life, Willie Nelson has to face the reality of old age and declining health. With hands that are no longer agile, a voice that sometimes grows hoarse, and a body that can no longer endure long tours like before. The performance schedule has been reduced, giving him more time to reflect on his family, his children, and the legacy he leaves behind. On a journey of more than 9 decades where music has walked alongside life, and on how his own resilient spirit has overcome all adversity to reach today. The quiet nights with his guitar, the warm living room lights, and the smiles of Annie D'Angelo and his children in the family band become precious moments, where Willie listens to his own heart and recalls every step on the arduous artistic path. He reflects on his achievements and musical legacy, from the early days selling music in garages, singing in small bars, to forming the outlaw country movement, to classic albums like Shotgun Willie, Red-Headed Stranger, Stardust. All are proof of the ability to turn suffering, failure, and pressure into vibrant and emotional music. Willie tells himself that each song is not just an artistic product, but also a story of willpower, the desire to live, and an unyielding spirit, and that these stories will last longer than any spotlight or award. In these years, Willie also spends much thought on his family and children, seeing Lucas, Paula, Jacob, and Amy grow up and in some ways continue the musical spirit and values he passed on. He feels proud when his children are not only blood descendants but also collaborators, companions on stage, turning music into a thread connecting generations between past and present. Practice sessions with his children, short tours, or simply moments together at home are all opportunities for Willie to remind himself and the next generation of the value of music, perseverance, and family love. Even though old age brings many physical limitations, Willie's spirit remains persistent, and music is still salvation, the source of energy that helps him face all difficulties. Each time he holds the guitar, each time he sings on a small stage or at charity concerts, he still delivers all genuine emotions: loneliness, joy, longing, and the deep happiness from music. Willie knows that his strength lies not only in talent, but also in the will to stand firm and loyalty to music throughout his life, regardless of age, health, or adversity. He also takes time to think about his spiritual legacy, about how his music and life story will continue to live in the hearts of audiences and young artists. Memories of long tours, empty nights, financial challenges, pressures from fame, all are looked back on by Willie with gratitude and appreciation. Those experiences trained him with a persistent, steadfast, and compassionate spirit, turning every adversity into a life lesson, every difficulty into creative inspiration, and every loneliness into inner strength. In the final years of his life, Willie Nelson still stands firm on the stage of his own life, even though the lights are no longer as bright as in his golden days, even though his hands and voice are no longer perfect, but his soul is still full of passion. Music becomes a source of joy, a place to connect with family and audiences, and also proof for all that old age cannot subdue a heart that loves music. A person who has lived fully and resiliently. It is Willie Nelson's perseverance, fighting spirit, and endless passion that have turned him into a living legend, a symbol not only of American country music, but also of will, determination, and human strength in the face of all adversity. Willie Nelson, after more than 9 decades of living fully with music, experiencing all the ups and downs and adversities, has left a life that is both full of resounding success and filled with harsh challenges, family losses, long lonely nights, and the invisible pressures from the spotlight that fans often see on stage. From the days when he was a poor boy in Abbott, Texas, abandoned by his parents, living with his grandparents, going through a childhood lacking emotional and material support, to the youthful years struggling with harsh tours, rejections from record labels, initial failures, racial discrimination, and social pressure, Willie gradually formed a resilient, persistent spirit and a heart that knows how to overcome all loneliness and suffering. These experiences not only forged his musical skills and unique style, but also created a soul rich in compassion and extraordinary endurance, ready to face all adversity and turn challenges into sources of inspiration for living. Willie Nelson's music career is a long journey full of immortal music, classic albums, iconic songs, and the outlaw country movement. Works like Shotgun, Willie, Red-Headed Stranger, Stardust, along with hit songs On the Road Again, Pancho and Lefty, To All the Girls I've Loved Before, not only conquered audiences but also shaped a generation of music, creating a deep influence on both American and international culture. He never stopped creating, experimenting with many genres, combining country music with jazz, blues, folk, and gospel, leaving a diverse, rich musical treasure that inspires millions of people. These successes, alongside pressures from contracts, tours, financial crises, and scandals, further highlight his extraordinary will and resilient ability, turning Willie into a symbol not only of music, but also of the human spirit. Besides music, Willie Nelson is also a dedicated social activist, using his fame and influence to create value for the community. He co-founded Farm Aid to support struggling American farmers, while participating in music education activities, raising funds for disease research, and advocating for the legalization of cannabis. These actions are not aimed at profit or fame, but stem from a humanistic heart and personal sacrifice, proving that an artist's life can go hand in hand with responsibility and an open heart, turning music and influence into tools to change lives. The combination of music and social activities creates a complete Willie Nelson, a living legend and a symbol of character, where talent, compassion, and determination meet to spread inspiration. Family is also an important part of Willie's spiritual legacy. Even though he once went through many divorces and distance from his children, he found new happiness with Annie D'Angelo, rebuilt a harmonious family, and had his children join the family band and accompany him on tours. The moments with family, though simple, become places where Willie recharges energy, finds joy and peace, while teaching the next generation the value of perseverance, family love, and music. This balance shows that happiness does not always come from fame or money, but from presence, genuine affection, and real connection with those he loves. Willie Nelson's resilient and persistent spirit is most clearly shown in old age and declining health, when he still maintains tours, recordings, composing, and performing with vibrant energy and emotion. Even though his body is no longer as agile as before, his spirit remains full, and music is still salvation, the place where he finds joy, meaning, and connection with audiences. Willie knows that old age is not the end, but a time to reflect, inspire, and spread the values he has cultivated throughout his life. The dominant emotions throughout Willie Nelson's life and spiritual legacy are tragedy, compassion, admiration, and hope. Tragedy for the days of poverty, loneliness, failures, and family pressures. Compassion for the unavoidable losses, for inner loneliness, for the years of distance from his children. Admiration for his extraordinary willpower, perseverance, endless creative spirit, and ability to stand firm in the face of all adversity. Hope because music, family, and humanistic actions have created a meaningful life and inspired future generations. When looking back on his entire journey, Willie Nelson has left not only immortal albums and songs, but also a living spiritual legacy where music and character combine to overcome all upheavals, all pain and challenges. He has proven that music and living character exist longer than any event, that the value of a life is not only measured by stage lights or awards, but by the way that person faces difficulties, dedicates to art, and loves those around him. Willie Nelson, with a voice echoing around the world, with a tolerant heart, with extraordinary willpower, has become a living legend, not only in country music, but also in the history of humanity, leaving a profound life lesson about love for music, love for family, and the power of will to overcome adversity. The story of Willie Nelson is a journey full of tragedy, but also extraordinary, making the reader feel both compassionate and admiring before his willpower and resilient spirit of living. From the poor childhood days in Abbott, Texas, abandoned by his parents, living with his grandparents in an old wooden house, Willie had to do heavy work from a very young age, endure hunger and face racial discrimination and social prejudice. These challenges not only shaped his resilient character, but also forged the spirit of music as salvation, where he learned how to turn pain into melodies, loneliness into notes, and helplessness into the desire to exist. In his career, Willie went through many early failures, albums that went unnoticed, demos sent out that were ignored, exhausting long tours, and unfavorable contracts. Even a financial crisis with the IRS that caused him to lose his home, but he did not collapse. Family tragedies, multiple divorces, distance from his children, the pressure of fame, all weighed heavily, but also created a persistent, creative Willie Nelson who always stayed true to music. Achievements like Shotgun Willie, Red-Headed Stranger, Stardust, along with social activities such as Farm Aid, supporting American farmers and music education, prove that Willie did not just live for himself, but devoted his entire life to contributing and spreading humanistic values. This brings a profound lesson for the American people. Even if one comes from a poor background, even if facing injustice, difficulties, or losses, if one maintains willpower, stays true to one's own values, and persistently pursues passion, each person can create influence, inspire others, and leave a legacy. Willie Nelson teaches us that success is not just about glory or awards, but the ability to overcome adversity, keep a strong spirit, love family, and use talent to help others. A message that is both close and profound, fitting with American culture that always values the spirit of independence, creativity, and humanity. If you want to continue accompanying the extraordinary journey of Willie Nelson and explore deeper into the touching stories in his music, please hit like and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss any part. Thank you for watching. See you again in the next video to contemplate other music legends and inspiring life lessons from them.